What's up, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Zoe, and today I'm talking about all of the books that I read in the month of July. I read 11 books in the month of July. I had a really awesome month of reading. The reading rush did take place in July, which I also participated in. I am going to go ahead and just fly through those books that I read. I did read 8 out of the 11 during the reading rush, and I've talked a lot about them in my vlogs. I will absolutely link them below so you can check those out if you want to see my in-time real thoughts about those books. But I'll quickly go through those books and then I'll move on to the books that I read outside of the reading rush in the month of July. So for the reading rush, I read 2 manga. One of them was The Promised Neverland. This was volume 5. I am loving this manga. I've talked a lot about this in a lot of past videos, but this has been, safe to say, my favorite manga I've ever read. It's spooky and dark and creepy, and it follows the story of these orphans who are being brought up by this person they call mom, and everything is seemingly very happy-go-lucky until they realize that they are basically being farmed for meat for like these demons, and everything is crazy and not what it seems, and they have to escape, and it's awesome. I love it. You guys are telling me to watch the anime of this, and I didn't even know there was an anime, and now I need to watch that. So this was so good. The story is really starting to pick up, and I gave this 5 stars. The other manga that I read was The Girl from the Other Side Volume 2. This is a very interesting manga. I like it, but I'm waiting for things to pick up, which I think it will. It's kind of this weird, you don't know what's going on. I mean, I'm only in the 2nd volume, so that definitely could be the reason as to why I'm like a little bit confused, but it's like this kind of this like demon-y creature, weird animal guy, and this like cute, adorable little girl, and he is basically protecting her from being cursed. If she touches him, she could be cursed. And the little girl thinks that her aunt is like coming back to save her, but apparently the creature guy knows that the aunt is the one that like abandoned her. So there's just like these very interesting different perspectives happening. I don't love it so far, but I feel like I'm going to really like it once things start unfolding. So I do plan on still continuing on, and yeah, this is such my vibe too. Like, it's just so cool. I don't know. I like it. I also read a handful of graphic novels during the readathon. One of them was Catstronauts, Mission Moon. Not much to say about this. I thought it was adorable. Definitely for kids, not for 27-year-old female ladies who don't need to be reading these books, but it is just really cute. I love cats, and like cats that are talking are just so cute. It was cute, not much to say about it. It's cats that go to the moon and save Earth from a power outage. And I also read Thin Slices of Anxiety. This is by Catherine LePage. This is like, the best way I can explain it is like a coffee table book. It's not long. It has very short little phrases and pictures on each page, and it's basically like she just talks about anxiety and how she struggles with it and what she tells herself when she's struggling with it. And it was fine. It was cute. It wasn't life-changing. I don't even really want to rate it, honestly, because it just was so short. It took me probably 3 minutes to read. So it's cute for like maybe a coffee table, but that's about it. And then the last graphic novel that I read for the readathon and that I read all month was Moonstruck. This is volume 1, Magic to Brew, and it follows the story of a couple different characters where they are all like fantasy creatures. Like one of them is a wolf and the other one is a centaur. Is that what they are? With the half horse, half person? That's what they are, right? Why can't I think of the name? I think that's what they are. Anyway, there's like vampires and ghosts and bats and like cute little things. The artwork is really cute. It's so bright and fun. I really enjoyed the artwork. Other than that, the story wasn't like, it wasn't that great. There wasn't much going on. It wasn't like an engrossing plot by any means. They went to a magic show as friends one day, and then the evil magician turned one of their friends from a centaur to a human, and it was their journey on getting him to change him back, but it wasn't really executed super well. If I was looking for a graphic novel and I saw it in Barnes & Noble, I would probably pick up the second one. I'm such a fan of the art, so I think it would be worth it to check out another one. And I did like the characters. They were pretty cute. There was a lot of representation in this. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't like the best graphic novel I've ever read. I really love this page. I just have to show you guys. Hopefully you can see it. It's not too blown out, but like it's like one of the main characters, and she's Her name is Julie, and she's just sitting there. She's reading a book, and it's just all pink and pretty. I think I'm actually gonna like tear this out or like cut it out very nicely because it's so cute. I just love it. So anyway, lastly, I read 3 full books during the Booktubeathon, and they were Wilder Girls, Crazy Rich Asians, and Lock Every Door. So Wilder Girls, we can start with that. This is by Rory Power. This follows the story of a bunch of girls who went to this like school on this island off of Maine. And there was some kind of virus that happened, and basically the entire island had to be quarantined. And they are growing like weird things. Really weird things are happening. Like one girl grew a second spine. The other one has like scales like a fish. Our main character Hetty had like one of her eyes like fused together. So like very weird things had to be quarantined, and it's basically like them kind of trying to survive on this island, and stuff happened. It was so weird. This was so weird, and I wanted to like it so much more than I did. I am obsessed with the cover. Again, I just want to like put this on my wall and stare at it because it's gorgeous. But the cover is what I liked the most about this book. Nothing else. I thought the characters were just hard to understand. I thought the story was hard to understand. I did not like the writing at all. The writing was very, I guess, poetic, lyrical, flowery. I felt like words were sometimes missing in sentences. Very hard to understand and follow. It was pretty like action-packed, so I flew through it, but it just was not what I wanted. And the ending was just abrupt. It was like the author was just like, I don't feel like writing anymore. You were like, wait, what? So I really didn't like this one. I think it's like a 1-star read, which is so sad. Oh my gosh, how disappointing. Boo. Okay, moving on. Let's get away from that. Although the next one wasn't my favorite either, and that was Crazy Rich Asians. This is by Kevin Kwan. I'm sure y'all know what this is about. Boyfriend and a girlfriend, they're dating, and the boyfriend decides to take the girlfriend over to Singapore to meet his parents and his family. Lo and behold, they're like super, super loaded, wealthy, really important people. And she has no idea. I love that concept. I love reading tropes about people who are super wealthy. I just think that's like so fun. But this was so much about like a whole bunch of characters. You had to keep track of so many people. It didn't feel like it was just about Nick and Rachel, which were the 2 main characters that I wanted it to be about. I was very just caught off guard with that, and because of that, I just really wasn't enjoying my time reading it as much as I wanted to. Lots of shenanigans, lots of really just shallow, awful people. I'm not someone that has to like the characters in order to like the book, but I didn't like any of them. Even Rachel, who is supposed to be likable, I did not like. I thought because the story focused on so many other characters that their character development really lacked. I didn't understand why, as boyfriend and girlfriend, like they didn't communicate with one another at all. One of my biggest pet peeves when reading or watching a movie or watching a show is when people just don't communicate. And that's like the root of all of their problems. So apparently these 2 people were supposed to be dating for like 2 years, very seriously. But she never asked about his family. He never told her about his family. And then when they get to Singapore and she realizes that they're really wealthy, she never calls him out on it. She like doesn't, how do you... I'm working myself up right now. I did not like this. I just thought it was that's not what happens in real life. So I just, no. Okay, let's talk about a book that I freaking loved. How about that? That was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This was so good. This is the 3rd month in a row that I'm talking about a Riley Sager book, and I'm not mad about it. I have read a Riley Sager book, 1 book a month for the last 3 months. Unfortunately, that's all he's written because I think I'm a huge Riley Sager fan now after I've read this. It was so darn good. So this is his newest book that just came out like last month, and it follows the story of our main character, Jules, as she has just become essentially an apartment sitter for this really established apartment called the Bartholomew. She's taking this job because she doesn't have a lot of money and it pays really well, and it's only for 3 months. And she's like, well, I can do it for 3 months and then get a bunch of money and then peace out. Well, being the apartment sitter has a lot of rules. Like, you're not allowed to stay a night away from the apartment. You're not allowed to talk to the tenants in the apartment. You're not allowed to talk about the apartment or like post it on social media. You're not allowed to have people over at the apartment. So kind of weird, kind of sketch. You're like, what's going on? Why is it like that? But she needs the money. So she does it, and she meets another apartment sitter that's apartment sitting for another apartment in the building, and then the next day that person just disappears. So she gets really suspicious. There's lots of weird things that are happening, and I loved every second of it. The ending was crazy in such a good way. You could have convinced me that it was gonna be anything for the ending, and I would have been happy and satisfied with any ending, the way that it was going, and I loved it. I loved it. It was so good. This is my favorite Riley Sager book easily, and probably one of my favorite mystery thrillers now of all time. 5 out of 5 stars. This was so fun. All right, I'm officially done talking about reading rush books. So the very first book that I read in the month of July was a reread for me. I buddy read it with my friend Chelsea, and that was The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This is one of my favorite books of all time, so I'll just go ahead and say that. It is the story about a town who has to sacrifice a baby every year to this witch. They have to leave the baby in the woods for the witch to take, otherwise the witch is going to come and curse their town. Well, it turns out that the witch is totally a good witch. She's the best witch, actually. I love her. And she is not aware of this thinking at all and thinks that the town is corrupt and just leaving these babies for her to save. So she goes and she'll take the baby and she'll bring it to a nice family in a different town and go on living life. We jump into the story where she rescues one of those babies, but she accidentally feeds the baby moonlight, which makes the baby magic. So she ends up raising the baby herself, and it's their story. There's a lot more to it than that. Like, you find out that the town is actually really corrupt. They want their people to live in this fear, and it's just so well done. For a middle grade book, I cannot believe how fantastic this story is. I feel some type of way about every character in this book. I love the really lovable characters, and I hate the villains. And so I thought that the writers did a really good job of just making you feel a lot of things when you're reading this story. I loved Luna. She has a little tiny dragon called Furion, and he's so cute. I want him. And they have this little monster guy named Glurk, who's this slime monster guy. He's kind of like the wise owl of the group. And then there's Zan, who's the sweet witch. She's like a southern grandmother. She's all a bunch of sass, but she's super loving. So many good characters. On a personal note, I think that there's a lot of parallels between this story and the story of Jesus and the gospel, and so I just love seeing those parallels throughout. I think that there's a lot of parallels like sacrifice and love and forgiveness and hope. This story makes me cry every time, and it just inspires me to be kind and loving and forgiving and all kinds of good things. I love this story with my whole heart. Okay, moving on. The next book that I read, I actually listened to the audiobook and I really enjoyed it, and that was The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. You guys, everyone hates this book. I read a bunch of Goodreads reviews before I picked this up, and I thought I was gonna hate this. The reviews just trashed this book. I loved this. This was so fun. This is a great mystery thriller. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this book. It was really popular a few years ago when it came out. It's very reminiscent of Agatha Christie. It follows the story of this girl named Lo who is basically stuck on this cruise ship as a reporter, and she's there with a bunch of other reporters and journalists. They're kind of all touring and testing out the ship on its first sail so they can give the ship publicity when they go back home. And there's a lot of weird stuff happening on the ship that she starts digging into. Basically, she was in a cabin and then she had to borrow mascara from her neighbor in the cabin next door, and she did, but then she thought she witnessed her getting murdered, but then there was no trace of that lady on the ship. So it was like, what's going on? Why is this happening? And I thought it was so fun. Like, it was a really well-paced, really great story. I don't know. I think maybe it was because I had such low expectations that I ended up enjoying this so much, but I thought this was really good and I was expecting it to be really not. Thoroughly enjoyed this. I do think that Lo's character was a little bit dumb sometimes, and you're like, okay, but who logically would do what you just did? I don't know. I just had a good time. I thought it was good. I think if you go into this not expecting it to be like the most mind-blowing thrill, because it was so hyped. That's probably why. Because it was so hyped by so many people, it probably, like, a lot of people probably went into this with really high expectations. Because I went into it with really low expectations, it was great. I had a great time. It was fine. So just go into it knowing that it's like, it's an all-right mystery thriller. It wasn't mind-blowing, but it was good. Okay, I'm done. I just have to say that goes to show that, like, your interpretation of a book can be totally misconstrued depending on what you're thinking and feeling before you go into it. So try really hard, even if you read a lot of reviews or see that a book is really hyped or hear a lot of bad things or good things. Like, try and have like a neutral attitude when starting a book, and that might help you be like more objective. When I say you, I mean me. I'm just talking to myself here. So let's move on. So the last book I want to talk about is a book that took me forever to get through, and that was Middlegame by Seanan McGuire. I read it. I did it. I read this book, you guys. I read this book. This is a high adult sci-fi fantasy that follows the story of two twins, Roger and Dodger, who are not quite human. They were created basically by this mad scientist to pretty much become gods and allow that mad scientist guy to control the universe. It's weird. How do I feel about this book? I did not hate this book, but it was a feat for me to read. I don't think I expected to love it because I'm not a huge sci-fi fantasy reader, but I do love Seanan McGuire's Every Hearted Doorway series, so I was expecting to really enjoy like the writing and the prose and the story. The first like 75 pages are rough. She really has you just diving into the book and not explaining a lot, and you just kind of have to power through. So if you're gonna start this book and you read it and like you're 15, 25 pages in and you're like, what is this? I don't want to keep reading it. Just power through, get to like page 100, let things start happening, and it'll make more sense. But yeah, the first good few pages don't make a lot of sense, and I think that's intended. Thankfully, a good middle portion of the book is really just following Roger and Dodger and their stories. When they're kids, they end up finding out that they can like telecommunicate to each other through their minds, and it's very interesting. They're very, very sweet characters. You can't help but really love them. And Seanan McGuire's writing, I mean, is absolutely out of this world. It stands alone in my opinion. It's the best writing I've ever read. I just love the way that she says things. It's beautiful. Like, literally, it's just beautiful. So I loved the middle part of this book. Like, everything in the middle I really enjoyed. But the beginning and the ending, I was kind of like, I could take or leave. The story as a whole, I thought was fine, but it didn't blow my mind, and I didn't feel a lot of things about the story and about the characters. I did like them. I just wasn't super in love with them. I don't know. I think it's hard for me because I really did want to really like this, but I kind of don't even really remember what happened at the end. I just feel very mixed about this book. I don't know what else to say about it. I just feel very mixed. I do like this creepy cover though, so there's that. I don't even know if I want to rate it. I mean, I would have to rate it a solid like 3 stars, 2.5, 3, 2.75. That feels better. That feels better than 2.5. Yeah. So those are all the books that I read in the month of July. What a month. That was a great time. I had so much fun in the Reading Rush readathon, and also read some awesome books beforehand. So overall, it was pretty dang good. All right, well, that's all I have. You guys should let me know in the comments down below, what was your favorite book that you read in the month of July? You guys always give me such good recommendations, so please let me know. All right, y'all. Well, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are, and I will talk to you soon in my next video. Bye!